Hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigor Mortis. I'm Review Cultist.
Hey, I'm Adam. I've been here before.
Yep.
Man, that's a tonal shift.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, kind of. Or at least the inspirations of many stories on the internet, most creepy and most pasta. So I kind of felt bad the last couple of episodes because I missed the chance for the show to tackle something involving like internet or computer errors or something, like some kind of horror story involving computer errors or computer or internet errors, or like 404 on our 404th episode. But I'm redeeming that, I feel anyway, by having Adam jump on the show for episode 411, where we're going to tackle a subject that is near and dear to, I think, both of our hearts, as well as the hearts of many internet creepypasta writers and Reddit no-sleepers. The missing 411.
Oh, God, yeah.
So,
and like, I hope you also think of me when we get to episode 420. But
I mean, if you want, we can do something. I mean, we'll just retackle that Slade, Kentucky episode or creepypasta, where like those kids were just like high on marijuana, driving through a provincial or a state park in Kentucky. They were clearly high on something.
Oh, God, yeah. There's not much to do around here. But yeah, kind of going back to the topic here,
Yes.
our topic here. The thing that I think is kind of interesting about this is that, while a lot of these creepypastas that, I've taken part in with you, like, the Kentucky, well, I call it the Kentucky Tree Dolphin, but, and, it's become called the Kentucky Tree Dolphin in our circle. But, a lot of these stories, like, even like Slender Man and stuff like that, despite how fucking crazy people are clearly fictional. And more than likely, I mean, there may have been something that was in real life that inspired it. But what we're talking about today is something that, I mean, there are some clear facts out here of some bizarre kind of circumstances that make up the missing 411, which is just a large kind of, to do a big blanket statement. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, and I don't have that number in front of me because I looked up everything but that, but there's, thousands of people that disappear every year, right? And then a lot of them are disappearing in like national park areas and wooded ones. And a lot of the work on this subject is derived from a man named David Pilates, or I think I'm saying his name right. Pilates, yeah. We'll call it that. We'll say Mr. Pilates is, I think he has some kind of background in law enforcement, and he really has been the one that's been spearheading the information getting out there on a lot of these missing people, and he's done a lot of research, written, I think as of like 9 years, I mean, as of 3 years ago, he's had 9 books on it, which...
Yeah, I'm looking at his Wikipedia page. So yeah, he is a former police officer and investigator. He's done 2 books on Bigfoot and 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books on the missing 411 since 2012.
And 2 films that we'll briefly go over. And another little side note, I would love to get his books, and I've looked about buying his books, and one of these days I am going to buy. I may cherry pick which book I buy because, I mean, honestly, a lot of these same stories are, I mean, they're rinse repeat kind of things like that. I've got a few that I want to kind of share with you, not from his book, but from another source. And ones that I remember hearing about beforehand, and one involving a man from Canada.
And well, I'm definitely going to I'm going to pick up the one if I ever do get one. I'd probably pick up the one that's missing 411 Canada. So
there's one for the eastern part of the states that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And the hunters one. That's also, I'm a avid outdoorsman, hunter, whatnot. And, so it's an interest to me here. But little caveat before we begin, if you look for these books on Amazon, somebody buys them and then marks them up insane. Now, his prices are not, I mean, to use an old country expression here, review cultist, Crazon, a man of many names, he's awful proud of it. meaning that they're expensive, maybe $20 a book or something like that for
Yeah.
paperback. But if you go to a third party, like Amazon resellers and whatnot, they're like $100, and he doesn't want them in a digital format. So I was always kind of holding out, like I'd go out and pay $5 for an ebook on it or something like that. Well, you're not going to get it. This is a tangible kind of media that you can get from this man. So
That's kind of ironically hilarious, given the nature of given the amount of attention these stories have online, not just as like somebody like drawing inspiration to write their own stories or pieces of fiction based on like missing people in national parks, but also the amount of like storytellers and narrators on YouTube that read that are either covering the accounts like in like sort of a broad strokes, almost like news, like retelling, or like straight up just like reading the story, or reading the accounts from the books themselves.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit later,
Yeah.
I think in our episode. But yeah, I just find that when I didn't realize that, honestly, I forgot that you that was a thing where he doesn't do digital medium. I was like, that's kind of ironic, given his popularity is digital.
Yeah, and he has a very strong kind of presence, I think. And I'm gonna give a kind of another little disclaimer before we get into it here. If you go looking up his other media on the internet, you also got to kind of take some other things about Mr. Pilates consideration. In particular, I mean, I know we're not going to make this a topic of contention in this podcast episode, but I mean, he has some very strong feelings about other things going on in America, and vaccinations and COVID and stuff like that. So just FYI, like be aware of that. And last that I heard of him, because I know when you approached me about this subject, I looked online to see what he'd done recently on YouTube, and I think he's trying to move away from that platform, either because of monetization or freedom or both. I don't know. So you'll find him out there somewhere. I lament that I had an opportunity to see him in Kentucky at a CryptidCon years ago, but I didn't notice that he was there until it had passed. And like I would have paid $20 to walk in there and maybe bought those books in person. I don't really follow the Bigfoot stuff. I mean, I like the concept of Bigfoot. I hope there's something like that out there. I mean, dude, I'm the guy who believes in ghosts. I've seen shit that I call a ghost and, weird things like that. So I'm, either an unreliable narrator to begin with, but, these things have always interested me. And I don't want to live in a world without magic, so to speak. So I think that's a good segue for me kind of jumping into, this particular topic. Is like, I know some of the stuff we're going to talk about is far-fetched, and I know this is a creepypasta podcast, and there is definitely a lot of media inspired by it, but I think the appeal for this, for me, aside from I'm in the woods often alone, and I'm a father, and there's been times where I've been separated from my child, actually just in my own little farm here. And she went into a barn and was behind something, and I didn't see my Otis when she was little. And I can remember that gripping fear of running around looking for this child, even to the point that I got in my truck and drove back on the farm a little bit. Thankfully, my wife was there and the kid came out of the barn. I just kind of overreacted. But I mean, this particular topic is something that hits. It's creepy. It's weird. There's weird stuff in real life, which is the appeal, but also it's kind of one of my deeper fears of being alone out there and something happening, or something happening to my kids. I mean, I can take you. God, I'm rattling.
It's fine. It's cool. Like, it is sort of a trifecta of like it hits a bunch of buttons for creepy for us for the folks of us that are in like horror, are in the interest of horror and creepy things. Like, you got the innate the cultural fear of forests and the isolation of that. The familial fears or the paternal fears of like a missing person, of like your family member, your child, and then there's also like the unknown element, like what is causing this, like I think in the last 2 years we've seen a surge in true crime, like podcasting and stuff like that. So like, and that's kind of similar to this in that it's like, because whether you think this is like there's likely a mundane I'm kind of on the same boat as you are, Adam, when it comes to like the like I want to believe, like Mulder says, or as
Yeah.
Mulder has on his little like on that poster in X-Files. Like I want to believe.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if there is something beyond that or not. Like, but I have that hope, or like that kind of wishful thinking. So I do feel like it's all likely mundane, but the fact that we don't know exactly how it's happening mundanely, it adds that element of mystification and like what the fuck, like strangeness to it.
Yeah.
It adds to the strange, the weird aspect.
And I tell you something I do appreciate about this. It was this 10-minute, 11-minute introduction. I'm looking at the backup recording here. Is that all right? So in literature in general, yeah, blowing off the dust off that degree. Here we go. But in literature in general, like we kind of go through different trends and whatnot. So, take for example, like I'm trying to think, like during the Romantic period, there was a romanticism of returning to nature and getting out of the cities and getting in touch with your roots and all that. And then there's kind of this dark romanticism that kind of came in there when you start getting like Dracula and Frankenstein, and like when you go away from civilization, that's where things are wild and unknown. And I mean, I think it's kind of something here with us too, as in our modern days, we live in town, cities, small communities, whatnot, and it's safe. There's safety in numbers and stuff like that. And you go out to nature, you go make that 2 or 3 hour drive to that national park, and you're hiking and enjoying everything, and it's beautiful, but you're maybe miles away from anyone. Like if me and you went, there's places here I wouldn't take you just because of rattlesnakes. That if me and you went back mushroom hunting and stuff like that, you better have snake boots on, because
The fact that you guys have like snake boots, like boots for like now, are they just like green rubber boots,
real thick
kind of thing, like
yeah,
really
real
thick like
boots.
rubber ones? Yeah, okay, yeah, we
And
just
they go
use
up to
those
like
regularly. yeah, we have those too. We just use them regularly for snow and such.
Yeah, and they also sell grooves, but I mean, there's a lot of this unknown. So
Yeah.
there is a beauty, but there's a danger to it. So the missing 411, as we jump right straight into this 13 minutes to the introduction, is again a group of people. I mean, the numbers that I'm looking at right now is over 1,600 unexplained disappearances in North America of just people who were there one minute and gone the next. Some of them are literally within a group of people. They maybe walk further down a trail and then they disappear, or you turn around and they're gone.
Yeah, that's what honestly like creeps me out most about it, or like what mystifies me most about it, is how fast somebody just goes missing. Like you turn around, look at something pretty, turn back, your cousin's gone.
Yeah,
like literally, like that's how fast like in some of these accounts, that's literally how fast it is. Like they turn to look at like a flower or like something they saw off the trail, they turn back and the person's just gone. And it's like, what the fuck is happening?
And totally gone. And then I mean, it's
like you can definitely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
So you can definitely see why people start conspiracy theorizing and like trying to like look at like there's. It's hard to find a logical explanation for why that's happening. So it's it's a lot easier to kind of just speculate something fictional or potentially like supernatural element. Like, I mean, hell, that's human folklore in a nutshell. Is that is using the paranormal to explain natural phenomena. But yeah, in this case, yeah, it's like it's easy to like try and come up with like, oh, like they were abducted, or something came out of the like something just like came out of thin air and grabbed them and pulled them back out of thin air, or like the rapture sort of situation,
Yeah.
like all those kind of things, or hell, something swooped down when you weren't looking and grabbed them, and like grabbed them very quick and quiet, and they're gone, and like
Yeah.
some creature, some entity, some force did that. It's easy to construct stories like that. Just
Let
look
me
at
give you an example of an actual story. I'm just kind of picking one at random here.
okay.
Now, there is children, obviously, are, as we mentioned beforehand, stuff that, I mean, that's a kind of a common one. And then there's also, I mean, elderly people are also prone, but then again,
Yeah.
anyone too. But there's this, you'll find bits and pieces of just it across the board here. So here is one on, let's see, did they find this guy? Okay, here we go. James McGrogan. All right, so in 2014, and I'm reading from a website here, a medical doctor named James McGrogan went on a split snowboard trip with friends in Vail, Colorado. Not many people have heard of split snowboarding. This is a sport that's like cross-country skiing or hiking in snowshoes. He came prepared with his cell phone, had a satellite GPS system. He was in great shape. He was faster than a lot of his friends. So he got ahead of these people on this cross-country snowboarding trip and said he would wait for him at the next stop. And the group of people lost sight of him, and they never saw him or on any of the stops along the trail. Eventually, somebody noticed he was not there, and when a search team went looking for him, they found no tracks in the snow that veered off the trail. So they had no idea where he could have possibly gone. 5 days later, his body was discovered 4.5 miles away, as the crow flies, if you're aware of that expression. So not a
Yeah.
straight, a straight line, but
Yeah.
not a path, which was more like a 14-mile hike, as he would have had to have climbed up mountains in order to get there. His body was found by two hikers at the bottom of a frozen waterfall. The search party had gone over the area multiple times before, but had never seen him until that day. McGrogan was mangled in a strange position. His skull was crushed, as if he had fallen from the sky. That's kind of a nice conjecture there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, adding to the sort of like, like that extra bit does, again, like it's not part of the factual element, but it kind of mystifies it again.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I just envision, it's like, what the, like, are people just slipping through reality and then like popping out like in wrong places? Like that, like, and I've been looking at a lot of backrooms stuff lately, because that's kind of in the current mainstream perception right now. And I'm just like, I'm just picturing like, yeah, like what if like that's it, like just there's some kind of like a glitch in reality, and you just slip through from one place to another and then back again, but in a dangerously wrong location, like several like maybe a mile up in the air, and just drop. Like, oh,
the people who believe that this is a simulation we're living in would probably have a heyday with this. So we're starting to get into the realm of like, is this a mandala? Not mandala. That's a Tibetan art form, a Mandela effect kind of thing. And as I finish this up here, I've already mentioned one of the recurring themes, and there's these elements that kind of keep going over and over again. Now, many people could argue that Pilates kind of cherry pick certain things, but there's a lot of commonalities that I would like to eventually get into here. So they found him in a spot, and this is one of the common ones that I'll repeat in a moment, where it was previously searched. It was also in a place that he shouldn't have been. He was also in a place that was no tracks or trail of him getting there. And here's another one. He was still wearing his full ski outfit and helmet, but there were no boots on his feet, and that's a common thing. And he had also taken off his gloves. The search and rescue team later found his discarded split snowboard, but they never found his boots. His cell phone and GPS were still working, and he had packed a backup battery as well. They tested the area where he was found, and there was a cell phone signal there. Yet he never called anyone for help. Police deemed it an accidental death and closed the case. So get a lot of the recurring things.
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
Like,
no, again, I'm just scoffing at like the fact that it's closed case. It's like, that is not a closed case. What the fuck happened?
yeah, it's so bizarre. So yeah, like the people, like, and a lot of them have their clothes off, or articles of clothing off, and maybe the clothes is found neatly, like,
Piled later.
folded and nearby. There's several of them. It mentions it in the films. I watched both of them, and so forth. Of like, these people are doing bizarre things, like they take off their shoes, they take off their clothes, their jacket or whatnot, even when they're in these like extreme environments that could possibly kill them. So obviously there's no reason why he didn't stop, and why would he take a trail that would basically wound him around 14 miles and then not call for help or anything. And I don't know, it's just
like,
I'll kind of,
if I'm like we may have a slightly different situation up here in Canada, because we don't have a lot of great we have some cover, we have some decent coverage in terms of like cell phones and cell towers and stuff like that, but like there are locations, like especially in some of our provincial parks. I'm looking at Algonquin Park, which is the big one north of me. That place has very, very crappy coverage. Like there's some towers around the entire park, but the park is huge. Like it's several 100 kilometers across. It's just a giant circle of forest. And yeah, I've gone portaging out there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term.
No, sir.
Basically, what we did was we'd go out camping into Algonquin Park by hiking the land gaps between all the lakes that dot through Algonquin Park, and then while we're hiking, we're carrying a canoe over our heads, so that we can then take the canoe and use that to go straight across a lake, and then continue to the next trail that cuts across land to the next lake, and then keep repeating that course until we get to the lake side that we want to go to in the park. That's my definition, I guess, of portaging, is basically camping with a canoe and trekking out and and carrying a canoe with you the whole time. Okay. But yeah, like we've gone out there, and like you don't get as soon as you like leave the first lake of where the portaging center is, or like where the main trailhead center is, you lose signal because like we're in the Canadian Shield.
Yeah.
So we're also, it's just lots of hills, but like nothing like the Rockies, but like more like just domed hills and solid granite. So not a lot of and all the towers are like hundreds of kilometers away, like all the cell towers. So unless you have a sat phone or a radio, you're not getting any signal out. So, and yeah, but like it is odd to me to like hearing this guy, like he was like, I from what I understand, like you guys have pretty decent coverage across like your country,
areas,
way more than us. So I find it strange that like even if he had coverage, like I know as soon as I find out I'm lost in the woods near my house, I'm using my phone and like to see if I have signal, and B, if I don't have signal, can my GPS find me on my phone? And then I'm just using that to basically like find my way back out of the woods.
Yeah.
Like I've done that. I did that a couple of times back in 2020 when I was randonauting. Randonauting's an app. It uses like an algorithm to randomly come up with coordinates near you, like within a 3 kilometer radius, and you're supposed, while it's working on generating that algorithm or generating those coordinates, you're supposed to visualize in your head what kind of thing or like theme do you want to find at the end of those coordinates. So like a lot of people have been doing like, I want like happy, like people do like happiness or beauty as their intent is what they call it. And then the coordinates are generated. You walk the like you walk the path or route they give you. They give you for like walking or driving, and then like the person might find a rainbow on the like near those coordinates, and it's like, okay, well that kind of fits the intent, like it's beautiful or something like that. Now for the creepy shit, and the reason I like it is because I usually go with the intent of like creepy, monster, ghost, spooky shit, like that, or
Yeah.
spooky, like something like that. And then like you go because people have been posting online and finding really weird, fucked up shit when their intent is like something spooky or something weird and stuff like that. Like and it's like sort of this weird mix of like geocaching with like a placebo effect, I think, or like a coincidence thing.
Yeah.
And people are just, because our human minds connect dots that may not necessarily be connected, people are finding like, well, that's really fucked up and weird. Like, look at this. Like, I put in spooky, and I went over to the algorithm punched in a coordinates to a graveyard that hasn't been used, or hasn't been maintained for decades, out in the middle of a field. Or like we drove to like a neighborhood after doing like intent creepy, and there was this really creepy person just staring at us on the street, like, and they stood there for a half hour just watching us. Like that kind of stuff. Or like there's ones where somebody found a body in a briefcase on a beach in the West Coast. So like, yeah, that kind of shit is fucked up. And again, like when I was going back to what I was trying to get at, I swear there was a point to this.
Oh, don't worry about it.
When I was out in the woods, like randonauting, I had my dogs, and my phone immediately, like, I went like maybe 20 minutes out into the woods, and we have lots of hills in our area. Signal's down, just gone, just immediately gone, no signal whatsoever. I had GPS coordinates, like they still had like it still had a tie into the satellite to overhead to basically pinpoint where exactly I was, but I couldn't call anybody, I couldn't text anybody whatsoever. Like all my bars were gone. So I was relying strictly on just the fact that there was even some kind of a GPS ping back on the map. So
And you're essentially helpless in these situations.
yeah, and the fact that the guy is out in the woods in an area where there is phones and stuff, where his phone is working and stuff at, and he didn't, that is incredibly suspicious.
Oh,
like, yeah.
There's one of them. I don't think it's this one right here, but there was one about a guy, a similar situation, or several of the stories where they split the party, so to speak, and then they never see one of the members again. Like somebody who was in tip-top condition and whatnot, just disappearing. And maybe they find them, maybe they don't. I want to share with you one I do remember from the film. And this is one that ends up with the person being located, and it's just bizarre. And then I've got another kind of crazy one I wanted to share with you. And then if we can, I've got a picture I like to show you. We can theorize some, go over a lot of the similarities of the context of these people disappearing, and maybe we could spitball and add our own takes on it. We're dealing with a serious issue of people disappearing, and neither one of us are making light of these horrible things that's happening. It's just there's this a curiosity to it. There may be, some of them could probably be easily explained that you read about, and then some of them, like this man right here that we just went over, Mr. McGrogan, James McGrogan. There's no reason why this situation should have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
So back in 1952, and the man's still alive today. So, he would be 70? Yeah, he'd be 70, or would turn 70 this year. Keith Parkins. In 1952, a 2-year-old boy named Keith Parkins went missing from his home in Ritter, Oregon, in the middle of the winter. He had been playing outside with his jacket on, but he was far from equipped to spend the night outside alone. His family and the local search party looked for him immediately. They could follow his tiny footprints up to a point before they completely stopped. There's no other animal tracks or adult tracks nearby. 19 hours later, they found Keith. He was about 15 miles away and had taken off his jacket and was laying face down in the snow on a frozen pond. Keith was alive. When they asked him why he had ran away and how he'd survived, he said he didn't remember. Now, I think this is commenting on the film because they're talking about it here. Survival expert Les Stroud, which I see on the IMDb for the Missing 411 documentary, demonstrates basically the survival expert Les Stroud said it would have been impossible for a 2-year-old to walk that far on his own, especially at night. And there's really no explanation why he is around today. Yeah.
And still alive. Yeah, like I'm trying to grasp at like a plausible way for that to happen. Like maybe he got picked up by some kind of a large bird.
I mean, the biggest birds we have here are eagles, but I mean,
yeah,
a 2-year-old child
condor,
isn't
maybe
big.
maybe a condor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like a 2-year-old isn't small, but it's also. I mean, I could see. I mean, I've seen YouTube videos of like a bird grabbing a child and taking them off for a little bit, and before like they get dropped. Like I've seen those kind of videos. It's like it wouldn't be too. If the bird is maybe hungry enough, it wouldn't be out of place for it to like go after a child if it was small enough, like, and maybe even light enough. But like the fact that the kid, first off, wasn't found, dead or not found at all, but was found 15 kilometers later on a frozen lake, like face down, like, and doesn't recall what happened is like, I guess maybe like the child, a 2-year-old could have like maybe suppressed the trauma of like that whole situation. Like, 'cause that'd be fucking terrifying, being swooped up like that and being rushed through the air by a bird or some kind of creature. Mm-hmm. And it's like and again, like that's my mundane side trying to like rationalize it. The other one's like aliens, like abduction situation. Mm-hmm. Cause like, yeah, like again, that's alien abduction 101. Like they were taken from one spot and then transplanted elsewhere, like hours later.
Yeah.
And have no recollection of how they got to that location, like that lost time situation.
There was one of these that, like the kids that disappeared when they would actually ask them, and I'm kind of glancing for it right now. I wish I'd been a little bit better prepared. You'll probably, okay, Big Hairy Wolf. I think I found it right here. But they would say that like, no, internal error. I don't have it. But the child would say that the hairy man had them or something like that.
Yeah.
Or their friend, or some of them had even said that I was with grandma when it wasn't their grandma they were with. Like you get this kind of weird, otherworldly kind of stories from those that they do find.
I legit just got a chill when you said like they were with grandma. It's like, fuck, like that hits my button on like creepy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like because I'm immediately going to something is wearing grandma's face.
Yeah.
To keep this child placated. And it's like, fuck. That no bueno. Yeah. No, again, that reaction right there, like my goosebumps and whatnot, is exactly why these are so interesting and enthralling to people.
Yeah. It just it's so bizarre, and I mean, I honestly I don't know. We'll get into like theories here in a bit, if there's even a theory to it. But I mean, they're so strange. So let me. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna comment. I was gonna comment a little bit earlier when you said like the shoes and boots are always seem to always be missing, or like there's a lot of cases where the boots are missing and stuff. And I was gonna make it like an offhanded like thing that I was like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna talk about it later, but cobbler elves, anybody?
Well,
like,
you know me.
It's yeah. That's why you're probably gonna bring it up later, but like about like the fae and like the whole like old English and Irish sort of like folklore of like the fairy folk and like them just stealing people. I mean, Yeah, that's not just it's not isolated to North America. Like this is just the most recent thing of disappearances. Like stuff happens like this all the time across all across the world, across history.
Yeah.
And like we've had explanations for it in the past, and like in the past it's usually like that's how folklore gets started. That's how like certain like legends and urban legends and stories kind of formulate, is again trying to make sense of something that seems senseless or weird.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
so here's some of the things that are kind of in common, and I'm kind of going from a source here to verifying it. And you may hear me bounce around between two or three things that they don't mention. The first and foremost is a lot of these people are never found. That's why they're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just disappear. There's instances where large search parties go out with bloodhounds, which are have an amazing sense of smell and experienced people, and aerial like coverage, people looking that way and all that, and they're never found. Subjects being found and if they are found, like the man McGragan I mentioned beforehand, are usually in an unusual position, like face down in the ground, in water that they should not have drowned in or anything like that. We'll see. Here's something weird. I'm trying to see, like face down on the ground, in the wrong side up in water for their gender. What the fuck does that mean, by the way? I don't know. But
yeah.
or with unusual lividity or state of decay for the length of time of their disappearance. Other things are, as I go through here, of course, I actually scrolled down this page, it mentions teleportation. Subjects being found in areas previously searched. We just actually went over an example of that, or searched many times. Subjects being found alive with no memory of the disappearance, or given an account that sounds incorrect, confused, or outright fantastical. Let's see what else. Subjects found deceased having no identifiable cause of death, or an unexplained fever if found alive. Well, of course, their exposure.
Yeah, exposure is a big thing, yeah.
Yeah. Subjects getting quickly separated from the group before disappearing. Often the first person or the last person in the line, and sometimes after the person in question says that they're feeling unwell. And that's something I've noticed in reading some of this too. It's like somebody just like, I'm feeling ill, I'm going to sit down, I'll catch up with you, and things like that, which kind of makes me paranoid that like you're just the weak gazelle's getting picked off, they're making you feel sick kind of thing. And let's see, is there any other subjects missing? Some or all articles of clothing, especially socks, shoes, and boots. And let's see, man, this is a detailed page. I'm scrolling through. Subjects forgetting wallets and phones at home or in a car before either leaving at strange times or remote places, or getting missing or being. Excuse me, this the grammar. We're going to do grammar inquisition on this website.
Well, I mean, everyone tolerates it at this point.
Yeah,
on the show.
Well, they said getting missing, but there's instances where they're talking. There was, I think it was in the film, or maybe it was in the McBallen one, where the individual was trying to drive home, and he's calling his parents saying he's lost, and he said he's on this road and he should be here, and his parents are trying to meet him, and then he's not there, and he's still talking to him, and then like something weird happens, and then the phone call just stops. So,
yeah,
very bizarre. Obviously, trackers are unable to track them. Canines are unable or unwilling to pick up the scent, and of either living persons or cadavers. Sudden spell of bad weather, which you have seen in the game that we'll briefly talk about here.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Yeah, we got to. Yeah.
Oftentimes, a freak weather event will occur, like storm, snowstorm, something like that, right around the time that someone disappears, which usually ends up hampering search efforts, and they have to wait 24 hours or 12 hours or a certain amount of time before they can continue to search. Subjects disappearing with a dog. Now, I haven't seen too much of this myself. Often the dog will return unharmed. That's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, like because I was like, oh, thank God, there are not many with dogs. It's like because like I'm just thinking back again on my rando nodding when I had my two dogs with me while I was rando nodding. It's like, oh God, I could just imagine like me never getting found again, and my two dogs finding their way back to my house would be so creepy. Also a miracle if they did if they did get back to the house.
Here's something that I find creepy, and this is like well, all of it's fucking creepy. But here's something that kind of sticks to me. One of the other similarities they have is like a lot of the subjects disappear in the afternoon. Driving and and the sun setting and whatnot, and or I mean, there's been times when I hunt in the evening and I walk out and like the sun's just directly in my eyes and stuff like that as it's setting, depending on obviously the location or the direction I'm walking.
Yep.
But yeah, like so you got the sun setting, could be like straight in your eyes. I mean, that's a good time. I keep thinking of that fucking Matthew McConaughey movie where he's fighting dragons.
Rain of Fire.
Yeah, that's when they were. That's when they would. That was the sweet time that they would kill the dragons
because they couldn't see the sweet spot. They couldn't. Or it was easier. Like their vision is hampered by it.
Yeah, which ours is too. Also, Matthew McConaughey's character was from Kentucky in that movie.
That was, you know what? I'll say it. That I think that movie has gotten some flack and stuff like that. Like I loved that movie. Like growing up, like
stupid fun.
Yeah, that's what it was. Like it was stupid fun. It was a cool post-apocalypse. God damn it! It was a dragon apocalypse, and it used that premise like really well. I loved that premise, and the how they pulled it off was like kind of nice. Like it was kind of good how they pulled it off. Like it didn't go too crazy. It's just dragons reawoke like elder gods into the world. Honestly, that's what the dragons are. They were just eldritch horrors. It's just a Lovecraft story, but with dragons.
Now I want to watch it again.
Same.
Here's one that I've seen several times too, and just like I said, I've kind of digested a multitude of this stuff to the point that I can't really even think of any particular instances unless I look for them. Subjects disappearing while picking berries or near mushrooms. That was also used in the scenario that we played with the huckleberries and whatnot. Let's see. Usually a high percentage of subjects are male, very young, college age, or old, with some kind of apparent or hidden injury or disability. I alluded to that before I got to this. With some exceptionally high or low intelligence, including specifically academically accomplished people, doctor, people like physicists and physicians who are physically fit, like runners, athletes, or soldiers, or people connected to, I don't know about this one, to religion or Germany. What the fuck was that? By the way, I found out why I was having trouble reading this. The writer is from Czech, which I mean, so English isn't their first language. They're doing better than a lot of the stuff I read. Locations are often have devil in the name, and they tend to be close to water, boulder fields, and large granite formations, and that's a reoccurring thing too.
It is interesting.
With water, you disappear near water, which makes sense. Boulder fields, of course, you could fall into a hole, or large granite formations.
Yeah, like Devil's Tower or Devil's Chair.
Yeah.
Like all those kind of national parks that roam around. I mean, yeah, it is interesting like that they have like specific types of like landmarks. I mean, and maybe there might be a reason why they're called they were dubbed Devil something in the past. Like maybe there was some kind of taboo or something, or maybe it was like leading on to something sinister about that area. Hence why they're called the Devil's Chair or the Devil's Triangle or the Devil's. There's one in Newfoundland that's like the Devil's. The Devil's Footsteps, and it's just like this fishing village that has like a series of like rock formations that have cloven hoof style holes just in a pattern that stretch across this encliffment, or is that even a word? Like an embankment, like a stone embankment. You can see these cloven hooved depressions in the rock, and it's just called the Devil's Footsteps. And again, like there's Devil's is it the Devil's Chair, or is
Devil's
that
Chair was the one in the
that's
scenario.
from the scenario. What's the one from Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
I don't recall that one.
I thought it was Devil's Tower. Honestly, sorry, I don't mean to derail
No,
this.
you're fine. And then
Yeah, Devil's Tower is the one in So like, there's Devil's Tower in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Used it as like it's a national park in Utah, Wyoming. Sorry, Wyoming.
yeah, here's a weird one that I just finally found. By the way, like this is the one that actually. I mean, I'm going down there this summer, Lord willing, to take the kids. Me and my wife like to go down to Tennessee and just do the touristy thing. I've sent you the picture of the place for the game that me and you were talking about with kids on bikes. So that I wanted to transport over to Colorado, but there's strange coincidences that occur in connection with some of the cases, typically involving names or people involved, and it's just here's a weird one. Like so, this one took place down in that area, which makes me all the more, you know. In the case of Dennis Martin, so this is Tennessee. This is, I think he disappeared near Klingman's Dome. I mean, it's kind of a tourist trap. He disappeared, I think, in the 50s or something like that. So it definitely wasn't as big. The Martin family went on a hike into the forest, and they met another Martin family. Dennis disappeared while the Martin kids were playing with the other Martin kids. Meanwhile, after Dennis went missing, the Keat family, looking for bears some distance away, saw a dark man type figure carrying something over his shoulders, and that's kind of they think that's what got him. So the case that they're making here, and I hadn't heard this, but I did read about Dennis Martin, was just Martin meeting Martin here, and that being kind of a bizarre. What was the name of the girl who they found in the water tower? Elsa.
Oh God, yeah. In
She was a Canadian, I think.
yeah, and she had some issue. She was bipolar, I believe.
Yeah, Elsa Lamb.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, Elsa Lamb.
Here's the connection this author's trying to make.
Elisa, sorry, it's Elisa Lamb.
Lisa Lamb. Lisa Lamb's death, around the time of her death, the NIH was using a test called the Lamb ELISA in the area to deal with a tuberculosis outbreak. Not only that, but other details of her death, especially how she was found dead in a water tank on a roof of a hotel that mirrored the plot of a Japanese movie called Dark Water. Now, this one may be a bit of a stretch, but weird thing. Now, the kid in Tennessee, like they were playing hide and go seek, and he just stepped out into the woods. Like they were all out there. They disappeared. He stepped back in the bush and never found him.
Oh God.
I mean, and that's what scares me again.
Yeah.
Now, other things that are not there that I want to just kind of mention briefly. Okay, I did the berries. That's great. While I'm looking this up, it's red clothes or bright clothing. Some of them have bright clothing on, or a lot of them have really bright clothing on, to the point that people on the Reddit for missing 411 are like, don't dress in bright clothes in the woods.
That's. I mean, I get like, okay, for this thing, but that's kind of counterproductive to
it's
everything I've ever been told in my life about going into the woods, like because hunters.
Oh yeah,
like do not go into the woods, you can go into the woods, like wearing whatever you want, but like if it's hunting, be aware like if it's hunting season or not, and don't go in with like camo or something like that, because again, hunters.
The picture I'm sending you is kind of cherry picked. Scroll down, so it's on Snoops, and it was like I've seen this image before, and what they're trying to show you here is, but like again, like Snoops, according to Snoops, this has been a cherry picked image. I don't know if y'all have seen it. For those of you at home, it's two maps of the United States, and one of them's highlighting cave systems.
Oh,
and then
we've talked about this on the episode where we were talking about a Kentucky-based creepypasta. Which one was it? It was the one with like the ghost town, and
the one down in southern Kentucky.
Yeah, and the people went down into they found like there was a tunnel that had been made in the church basement, and so like the town didn't go missing. They went underground, and they're like, there's this like, and we had a conversation, I believe, in that episode about the cave systems of North America.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, that is so weird and creepy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's basically, as we got 53 minutes into it here, that's kind of the bulk of it there. I wanted to kind of offhand go over with you. The map, like I said, if you look at this for the all right, the caption for it, just type in missing 411 in caves or something like that, and a Google image search will pull it up. It said top maps show mysterious cases of people vanishing without a trace. The bottom map shows America's largest cave systems. And the implication, like I said, it's partially true, but they're also excluding other missing people. So it's, yes, it's true, but it's been kind of
It's that
manipulated.
how much of this is again the human brain connecting dots that may not need may not actually have a connection.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, again, like, I look at that and I'm like, that is really creepy and awesome. Oh, okay, not awesome. It's really creepy and awesome in terms of like piece. Like, I would want to use that in a piece of fiction, or like, in a game scenario or a horror scenario, like of dealing with like some kind of conspiracy that like the Morlocks are,
Yeah.
or some kind of subterranean entity. Like, I think actually that's also partially the origins that Delta Green, the RPG, proposes for ghouls, was that they're like a subterranean species that's been like that went underground sometime in our history.
Yeah.
Like they're humans that evolved down a different path and have gone down into the earth, kind of similar to the Kinyon.
And similar to what was the movie? It was filmed. It was an American movie, but they were pretending to be American with the Descent.
Oh yeah, the Descent movies, yeah, and like again, there's a bunch of stories again of subterranean dwelling humanoids.
So,
But yeah,
you
like
mentioned,
it is like again, it's a very interesting coincidence. I'll say like that, like
yeah.
the cave systems, like how the cave systems sort of match up with the the missing people's reports and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it actually like is there any water there? Or does it hold any water? I don't know. It'd be really fucked up if that is the case, but again, like, it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
say.
So I found National Park Traveler too.
Yeah.
So according to 2017,
Mhm.
wherever they're getting this info is, which
Well,
I
this is
mean,
from the National Park. Yeah, it's from the National Parks Travelers website. I think that's
but I mean, it's an organization though. It's not. I
yeah.
mean, so I'm just saying, like, take it with a grain of salt.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
missing people like there was 563 from the Lake Mead National Recreational Area. So that's in I think that's in Nevada
Yeah, it's Lake Mead is the is the lake
near Boulder
just outside,
City.
yeah, Boulder City, and just outside of like Las Vegas and such.
Grand Canyon,
Yep.
Yosemite,
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Mountain National Park. I don't know why they got that little
Sequ-
symbol there.
Sequoia National Park,
Yeah,
Zion National Park, Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. Oh, that's the. Oh shit. I'm sorry, man.
It's all good. Like
I was gonna comment because I saw this. I saw this earlier, and I was like, "Wow, it's a lot." I'm glad I don't live on the West Coast. This makes me feel a lot safer that like most of the missing peoples are happening out in the West.
yeah,
But then you go down to Great Smoky Mountains, like, oh, sorry.
yeah, and I mean that's where that Martin kid I was talking about. That's like
Yeah,
right in the thick of that right there. And then I think Shendawa. That's where the
that's in
fuck is it?
Virginia.
Yeah, it's in Virginia. And Bryce Canyon, and there's several. But yeah, this is like in a nutshell. These are the things that keep me up at night. You mentioned it beforehand, like, and Pilates never mentions anywhere. Like he will not. I think as close as I've gathered is people say that he has his theories, but he doesn't want to state them in case for fear of, people are going to think that he's
Being
saying this is why this is happening. It delegitimizes anything and all. But
I
a
kind of
lot,
respect that
yeah,
because, like, again, he's not laying down. He's not. He's a conspiracy theorist.
hmm
But and there's definitely some issues. Like, there's some problematic things about him and stuff. Especially more
yeah,
recently. But at least with the missing 411, to a degree anyway, he's laying down the facts as much as he can, as much as he's aware. He's not laying down any kind of like theories speculating something wild like, again, the Fae or what have you. Like, he's laying down, he's trying to, like, it seems like he's trying to lay down like just what happened, not any kind of speculation as to why it happened or how it happened. He's leaving that to everybody else.
yeah. I
So
totally respect that about this entire deal. And it leaves, speculation where we've mentioned twice that my big head canon for this stuff here is like, if we're going to go ahead and say people are disappearing magically, then let's just go whole hog.
mhm.
I mean, well, hell, the Fae, like as you mentioned beforehand, throughout, you know, that area, like they were always stealing children and whatnot. And then I think there's equivalent to the Fae in, other cultures, like the Oni, Native Americans have some that I can't like,
They're like,
recall.
yeah, different types of like spirit people and such.
hmm
In Native American belief systems. Yeah, it's sort of it's a cultural thing that is sort of shared, but like they all, like, every culture has a different take.
Yeah.
But of something similar. Again, it stems from that whole thing of, like, if you want to look at it from an anthropological point of view, I suppose it's basically everybody has everybody's trying to come up with a in history and in their culture, trying to come up with some kind of explanation to a phenomena they don't understand. Um, so
I think as far as, like I said, content that I can think of off the top of my head, the only other thing I'd like to add to this conversation is the things that scare me the most, and you kind of hit on this a moment ago, well, earlier when we were talking about the gentleman that McGrogan that was found like he just dropped from the sky. And
yeah,
I can't reference where it was, but I mean this is Pilates I was listening to. Like it's not unusual for me to put earbuds in. Like I'm gonna go to bed. Well, what am I gonna relax with? Yeah, this and just
missing. That's such a current thing though, because, like, yeah, no, people listen to true crime shit now. Like, and like
mhm,
or it's like all the people that like loved like unsolved mysteries in the 90s and like loved all those like Bigfoot searching and all the
yeah,
weird mystery like crime shows and stuff like that in like the earlier, in like a previous decade. It's all caught up in the in the current media because,
mhm,
like, it's something that could be that something that's fascinating on a morbid level, and our world's just getting more morbid by the day. So
yeah. The one that kind of sticks with me is he was talking. I think it was in Australia or somewhere like that. Or he was talking because these cases aren't just limited to our area, but that's kind of just what he focuses on. Yeah, actually, the organization that he runs is called Can-Am. So obviously Canada American or Canadian
yeah,
American kind of deal. But I mean, it seemed like some of these people in the stories I've read that scare me the most are the ones that like they're walking, and then it's like it's a whole disoriented thing, but it's like they pierce the veil kind of thing like that. Like he was talking about some woman who was on her cell phone and was lost, and she had called her the people she was with, and she was yelling for them to try to call them, or she was yelling, and they could hear her, and they could hear her on the phone, and they could hear something, but they could never find her. And now I've seen fake stories like that too.
yeah,
That it's not like, but I mean that came out of Pilates' mouth, which take that for what it's worth there as well.
yeah.
But
Again, yeah. Take that with a grain of salt. Again, he's not entire. Like I just said earlier. Like, I give him respect for like laying down the facts. He's also I also want to we should probably also iterate that he's also not an unbiased like uh, a counter for
yeah,
this. Like, he does kind of show some of his opinions or some of his biases in this. So
yeah. He's human, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Like he's human. Like we jump to conclusions and such, and come up with things that may not be logical to other people. So
The fact that like you could be walking and then just walk through something and then boom, here you are, or the fact that you're walking and then I think of it like me being deaf, man. Like I didn't know I was going deaf. Like it just was a gradual thing. So what if as you're walking, like you're like it's almost like you're slowly getting inebriated or something like that, and like or it's like oxygen deprivation, and you're slowly losing complete control of your faculties. But it's not in like such a large, like instantaneous kind of like you've been drinking fast and you stand up and you're like, whoa. It's not
you get
that moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That scares me. And then the kids things, obviously, but
Yeah.
those are the stories that really just kind of stick out to me when like someone who it's like they were there and then they just rematerialize, and that scares me. Or it's like they were there and then they take a step and then they're transported to another whatever, and
another even like a different layer of reality. So I'm hearing this like from you, like about like the person who's like calling and like they're shouting and the people can't hear or can't find them. They can hear them, but they can't find them.
yeah.
I'm immediately thrown into and I'm sorry, I'm thrown into like brainstorm idea like scenario building right now.
Yeah.
Of somebody going from like you have a group of people. This can either be like before the scenario starts, like, and this is like the mystery you have to solve, or this happens during the scenario. The characters are in a group; they're walking through the woods, and then you just have everybody roll a will save, or roll a will save, or roll some kind of a check, and the person that gets the lowest, everybody around them just suddenly vanishes, like they just stop seeing them, and then everybody like they look back and they realize that one person's gone.
Yeah.
And I just would love the idea of like they try to contact them on their phone, and they can contact them on their cell phone, and like and they're able to report exactly where they are, but they're not there for either of the parties involved. Like that's the creepy part. Like that gave me a chill when you brought that up. It's like that they were able to contact the person, but no matter how hard they tried, even though they were in the location that the person said they were at, and they were and the person was shouting,
Yeah.
they couldn't find them. That's fucked up. Like like because they've suddenly somebody has just gone out of phase. Like they've gone down. Like they've just moved over to the net to like a parallel layer of reality and cannot be seen. It's like the Tillinghast stuff, like the Tillinghast resonator kind of situation. But like as a normal anomaly. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. All right, add to it.
And to kind of bring up something that we mentioned earlier, like we were talking about that top 10 list of national parks with like the most disappearances. The Lake Mead part of it, like Lake Mead is the top one according to that 2017 list. I am reminded that Tales from the Loop, which is a series and a RPG system and setting based around fringe science and technology and advanced technology, in a like an 80s and 90s sort of setting, and the American set drop is Boulder Lake or Boulder City in Nevada and like around Lake Mead. That would be a great RPG, I think, to run of like basically to sort of like play with the idea of like people going missing in and around Lake Mead area. Is that there is an anomaly in space-time that is pulling people out of phase with reality. So they're just lost in this other layer of reality because of like in the setting, it's like because of the Hadron Collider or the particle collider that's in and around Boulder Lake or Boulder City. So, this stuff always gets my brain going for like story writing or even like scenario stuff.
And it's not just you. I mean, Detwiller for the Sentinels of Twilight Operation Fulminate.
Yeah.
He took this, and I've like if you tune in to Review Cultist's sister podcast, One Less Die, I think you said
October.
In October, so something to look forward to
for Halloween. We'll be posting it For the week of Halloween, we're going to start it with October 31st. We're going to post the first part of it, and then on the second part is going to be on our regular day on that week, the Wednesday. We're going to be posting the Delta Green game that Adam ran. That was based off of that scenario, Operation Fulminate. So,
and that way we're in his. I've read him kind of talk about writing scenarios. This was several years back, and he even referenced like all he had to do was just go out and Google something, and like boop, there he goes, and then I could tell that he'd actually researched some into it for the background and how things he'd included the storm and things like that. But yeah, he is in the Delta Green Handler's Guide book. You can find that scenario, and then again check it out here. And I want to go ahead and preface this here. Like I said, this is kind of a fear of mine. Like in a logical fear, no. But it's something that's in the back of my mind as I walk through the woods by myself, hunting or whatnot. Just, I don't think that I'm going to disappear. But then again, it's just in the back of your head.
Well, fear. Like, humans have these fears.
Yeah. And we are in no means or way kind of trying to say, okay, this is horrible what happened to people. So would you like to play my Charles Manson family game? Kind of weird thing like that. We're not saying this is disrespect or anything of that sort. This is, as we go through looking for inspiration, if you look at reality, and to quote Kenneth Haidt, if you scratch anything long enough, it'll bleed. I'm not paraphrasing, but it'll bleed weird or something like that. It's just one of these like things that kind of stick out to us. And when I ran that scenario for you, it was almost kind of therapeutic for me because, the scenario involves children, a child that disappeared in the 80s, 1980, if I'm not mistaken, or pretty close to it, that magically appears in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
On the 4th of July weekend. And, it had all those spooky things like it missing 411 thing, child. Like it's not, my fear of my children disappearing, so exercising it and by running it, so to speak. But there was a reason I picked it, and it was good for me to run it.
I think, it's sort of the question of like, when it comes to like writing a horror story, a piece of fiction that is closely tied to something that affects the real world. It's like sort of like there's always the question asked like should you be doing that kind of thing like out of like respect and stuff. And of course you want to be respectful to the material that you're drawing inspiration from. But I feel like when it comes to horror stories, specifically horror stories, it's a lot of the time, or at least a good portion of horror stories are told as a form of catharsis or a form of processing. Stuff that we can't, trying to find an outlet for something that affects us in the real world, and trying to make it, trying to either like find some kind of not levity, but like a morbid levity, or a trying to find some way to like come to terms with it, or make it less scary by making it scary in fiction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're stealing the power from something, and the weirder it is, the better it is, as opposed to like, say for example, when they were working on the new incarnation of Vampire the Masquerade, there was something to do with, they tried to blame this genocidal thing that happened in Russia to like certain homosexual population or whatnot. I don't know the exact reference, but I know that they basically tried to play off like the murder of LGBTQ people as, oh, it's vampires, and that's not doing that is just being callous and all that. So, with the Detweiler scenario, you're taking strange disappearances and just kind of throwing an explanation out there for it in the game, and it's not as exploitative as
that's what it is. Like being respectful to something, by that I mean like not being exploitative, especially if like like there's sort of a double edge when it comes to like pulling something from reality. Like you have to either separate it a couple of steps so that it's not strictly that thing, or there's got to be some distance. I think like there's the reason why there's the term too soon.
Indeed.
Like because sometimes like you don't want to be like we've been actually tackling it on the show kind of recently because like not tackling it in a serious sense, but like I've been noticing that like in the last year or 2 years, there seems to be people writing creepypastas that involve pandemics, and or set in a pandemic like scenario, and it's like I mentioned it in one of our latest one of our previous episodes, that like I understand like it's all about like it's probably because like that's our current reality, that's our current that might be our reality for a while, is just dealing with this kind of like scenario, and so like of course people are going to try and are going to incorporate that to make their story more realistic, and or maybe even just to get a sense of control by making their characters helpless in that same scenario.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Yeah,
for some. See, I have been doing the majority of the talking, and I was very excited when you asked me to jump in here and do this. I hope I did a decent job, but I want to ask you. Now, we mentioned Mr. Ballin or McBallin, that's what I wanted to call him a second ago. I think like a nice closing to this, or as we kind of wrap this up, like you've digested this media. Now, obviously, I don't expect you to go, well, I'm going to talk about the such and such case that occurred, blah, blah, blah. But like any of these stories that you've kind of encountered kind of stick out to you, or like, yeah, what have you seen that or listened to?
Of course, now I can't recall any. I'm suddenly coming up blank.
He's got like a series of like 17 of them. I know that there was one that kind of stuck out in my mind where the guy looked like when they were like a road crew or go walking down a gravel road working on stuff for the road, and guy in the lead disappeared, and when they walked up there was nothing but change, like he had been picked upside down. Now I don't know that, I can't reference that obviously, but
I'm not sure if this is a 411. I'm going to quickly double check because I remember the Headless Valley in the Yukon that Mr. Ballin did. I'm not sure if it would count though as a because it's more of like a murder thing that he brought up.
Yeah.
Well, it is in the Nahanni National Park, so it's technically, but they are being found like later. The bodies and stuff, just headless.
Wow.
Yeah. No. So there's the missing case of Bobby Penkin. So yeah, this family goes out into the woods on like a vacation or trip, and they go down a very isolated like logging road, and follow like a creek and like a waterfall area to see like the waterfall spot, and the path down to the waterfall is like really is really like overgrown and covered and rough terrain. So the mom Edna leaves 2 of her kids on the road, which has not been used. Like they had to walk out to this road, like they couldn't even drive out to it. And she takes her oldest down the path and tells her 2 youngest to stay and sit on the road and wait for her, and they'll be back in a bit. So she goes down with the oldest down to the river, to the waterfall to see it, and then one of the youngest decides that they don't want to wait, so they just leave Bobby, the kid, like the other youngest kid, up on the road by himself for 2 minutes. And when the mom goes back up, furious that the one kid left the other one, they can't find Bobby, and there's a major search that's called in. They get a hunting dog that looks for it, or that looks for the kid for any sign of it. They go the dog sniffs out like a spot, I think it's like 2 miles out of the away from where he was, and finds and just continues to like stay at this like patch of dirt at like a crossroads or something like that on the logging road, and like they don't go anywhere else, and they're never able to find this kid. And this kid was like out of sight for 2 minutes, and something or someone showed up in this very isolated location and just picked him up and left and vanished. And I think that's honestly like what I was referencing earlier with like what gives me chills is like how like a child can be like, you can look away from a child for like 1 minute in the woods and then suddenly them be gone. Like that's fucking terrifying to me. And like that's what stuck with me. And yeah, like there is all theories like it was, first off, it might have been a person that was waiting out there for some reason. And then when that kind of fell through, they're like, well, maybe it was some kind of an animal, like maybe something swooped down and grabbed him. And then, and the fact that the dog kept going to this one patch of dirt and they cleared off the area. And I was expecting when I was listening to it that like they were going to clear out the patch of dirt and they were going to find something under it, but they didn't. The dog just kept going to this spot, no matter how many times they like had it refresh its scent from Bobby's shoe, because this kid had an issue with like wearing shoes and stuff. So his shoes were just in the car when he got taken. And yeah, so that's one that sticks out to me really bad and kind of creeps me out because children missing. Like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one. That's one that comes to mind.
I'll tell you, this is one from the film, or I think the films are from Mr. B. Allen and all, but I did pull this up. This was a Canadian one, and this one doesn't end in death, but it's like so bizarre. So it's kind of my last little entry here of weird cases. It's just bizarre. Like I said, like you don't know you're inebriated, kind of deal like that. So the man's name is Philippidis, Danny Philippidis, Philippidis. In February of 2018, a Canadian man named Danny Philippidis was on a ski trip with his friends in New York. It was around 2 p.m., and they had been skiing for hours. They were getting ready to go into the lodge, and Danny said that he wanted to go out for one more run down the mountain before their lunch break. This was a McBallin. I remember this now.
Yeah, I also remember this one too. Yeah.
But by 4 p.m., Danny was had failed to return, and he calls or texts from his friend, and his friends were concerned. They began searching for him, and after being unable to find him, they told the employees of the lodge that he was missing. A team of 130 people scoured the mountain without finding him. I also think the weather got bad too, but it's not mentioned here. 6 days later, Philippidis' wife received a phone call. She didn't recognize the number, and it sounded far away and staticky. It was Danny's voice, and he was incoherent and confused, and then hung up the phone. She called the number back and pleaded with him to call 911 for help, so he did. He had no idea where he was, and he had just described his surroundings. And so he just described his surroundings. When the paramedics finally found him, he was still wearing all of his ski gear and in need of medical assistance. He was holding a brand new iPhone, and someone had cut his hair. Somehow he ended up in Sacramento, California, at the airport terminal car rental depot. He was 3,000 miles from where he disappeared. He couldn't remember how he got there, and he had no idea what day it was. When he learned where he was and how long people had been looking for him, he got very overwhelmed and emotional. The leading theory is that he was kidnapped in the back of a long rig truck, but there's no proof to ever support this, but that's just like a theory. So yeah, I mean, seen it multiple places. Dude is out skiing, wanted to go a couple more rounds, wasn't with everybody, and then now this is kind of an outlier. I mean, they're usually found in weird places. Sacramento, like I don't know. I mean, that's
Sacramento's pretty like not out of the way, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, but being found in an airport as opposed to like a blackberry thicket or something like that, it's kind of strange. But that one kind of stuck with me. But I think I have no more. If you want, folks, again, I mentioned there's books out there. I haven't purchased them, but you could just pretty much Google and find all kinds of stories. There's a Reddit if you want to go doom scrolling into that and trying to because there are some people that like with some very strong opinions about this here. Also, there's the videos we mentioned, like Mr. B. Allen on YouTube. But then again, like if you type in missing 411, you're just going to find a plethora of either people
There
recount.
are so many people like it again like true crime podcasts. It's become a whole thing on YouTube where people are digging into these missing reports of these accounts of the missing 411 and other mysteries and laying out the facts and like adding some speculation and like putting it to some creepy music or some imagery, some like photos and stuff like that to sort of like help showcase this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's good, really, like there's a bit of a dilemma because like narration on YouTube sometimes isn't great because we've had it on our show. Like we've had sort of a stance on Al Dente Rigor Mortis regarding like creepypasta narrators. Like there's a number of them out there that are just taking creepypastas and not crediting the stories and just basically making money by reading somebody else's work online and stuff like that. And I don't think that's cool at all, especially if they're not, asking or getting permission or even like bringing the person who wrote it, like giving them any kind of like due for it.
It's exploitative.
Again, very, very exploitative. And with this kind of stuff, though, it's kind of different because these stories are accounts. The people I've listened to and watched on YouTube for the missing 411 and the other like unsolved mystery cases and stuff, they're relaying facts and information in a way that they make it, and it's basically kind of like the news in some degree in terms of like it's an editorial format, not a blatant plagiarized sort of reading of somebody else's account. Like Mr. Ballin, even like he says on his show like multiple times, he reads the story from the books, and then writes out his own like kind of telling of it, to kind of make it his own, and tells it and then like sets it all up and tells it the way he would like be telling a story around a campfire and stuff. So there's a lot more production work there's a lot more production involved and a lot more work involved than just taking a story online that somebody wrote and not telling them that not advertising that like how they wrote it and stuff like that, and just straight up reading it like word for word on your YouTube video. So I just want to preface that. And like there's there's a whole like thing, like a couple of one of the first things that me and Adam got into, like in terms of like when we first met and stuff like that, the first thing we started talking about was basically the Reddit No Sleep story that we had just posted on Al Dente Rigor Mortis, Search and Rescue Woods. And like we both like kind of shared like the idea, like because the Reddit, the infamous Reddit stories of Search and Rescue Woods was it's got to be heavily derived from the missing 411. Like like the only thing I don't think the missing 411 has anything about like stairs in the woods, so that's something original. But again, that's all works are like they are adding this extra element to make it like something fictional and weird and strange, while grounding it in reality for the process. So
well, man, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
No, I was glad we finally got around to. We've been talking about the missing 411 for years at this point, and we've like been we've been like kind of talking about like doing an episode in some variation of the missing 411. We just it never, the time or like the spotlight never came up until episode 411's coming up. Maybe we should do an episode cover that either as a creepypasta that's based on it, or well, we've already done that one with the Search and Rescue Woods. So let's just do a talkie about let's just discuss the subject rather than a story. So
well, thank you. And if you all want to go into my theories, like you can even type in missing 411 NFA. And there's people on YouTube, by the way, that kind of did that, kind of tied in back like that. So
it's there. Like it, like both of us have like come up with that idea of like, oh, that definitely like screams the Fae. Like, so I mean, other people are going to scream that too.
Oh yeah, definitely. But this is great. I look forward to us finding something else kind of bizarre for us to latch on. So or story-wise, fiction or nonfiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Like again, like we're I would be interested. Like you've voiced your idea of like doing some games based around this kind of your idea of like the missing 411 with the Fae.
Yeah.
So I would always be interested in playing in that horror scenario where or monster scenario where like we're a bunch of like hunters that have to deal with like the Fae creatures that are in a national park. On your podcast, or on my other, or on the sister podcast of El Dente Rigor Mortis. But what's your podcast again, there, Adam?
That was a really nice introduction. That's better than the ones I give you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
This is Adam, and I do the Roleplaying Exchange. This is a podcast I started with my friends Chris and Noah. Oh God, years and years ago. I think that I think it's at least 4 or 5 years. I'd have to actually look on the webpage to see when we started, but we basically are an actual play podcast. We occasionally do talkie episodes, not so much in the past year or so, just I'm running out of things to say. Believe it or not, if you've listened to me rattle for an hour, sometimes I just don't know what to say. But yeah, you can find us there. We release about 3 episodes a month. No, not about. We release 3 episodes a month. And yeah, you can listen to Review Cultists over there with us. We are currently, as of the time of this posting, I'm assuming we're still going to be dropping the nice little Monster of the Week campaign that we started over the pandemic, the Uncles of Penny Dreadmill, and it's tons of fun. So if you like listening to me, if you like listening to Review Cultist, want to see some of his more I don't know more. That implies everything else sucks, Chris. Let me rephrase that.
I would think like his more creative outlets. So I was like, I mean, that's not too far off because like, I mean, we discuss stuff on the show, but like the sister podcast, One Less Die, and RPX are sort of like the like, whereas we talk about like creepypastas and like we look at other people's works on this show. On those other shows, it's our sort of like it's our creative outlet from like of that. So
Yeah,
like it's our stories that we're telling.
So we're essentially gaming groups. It's a framework as a podcast on those shows, and it's great. So yeah, if you want to check me out, come over there. We got tons of stuff, and yeah, thank you so much again.
All right, and I guess I'll also like so our sister's podcast, I keep calling it that. It's One Less Die. It's a Shadowrun and gaming actual play podcast. We do more than Shadowrun. We do games. We do other games, like Monster of the Week and Cthulhu D20 and Pathfinder and also Mass Effect D20.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of D20, a lot of Shadowrun, a lot of Monster of the Week, and other games. Like in October, like I said, we're going to have Adam on the show with a Delta Green system and scenario that has to do with people going missing in national parks. So yay! So look forward to that. And yeah, you can check it out on any major podcasting streaming platform that you use, like iPhone or on Spotify. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you bring up your Twitter account for RPX?
I didn't bring up shit. I just realized that I didn't even give it like the podcast website. So yeah, I mean, jumping back in here because I'm a professional, you can find us on the web at www.roleplayingexchange.com. We are also on Twitter at RP Exchange, and the Facebook page is facebook.com/ I think the Roleplaying Exchange. If it's a sex web page, take out the the.
Yeah. So, and if you like this kind of content that we're doing, like this loosey goosey format of talking, it's not our normal. It's not our bread and butter, but it's something that I like to do occasionally because sometimes there aren't creepypastas. Or there's not a lot of creepypastas based around a subject that I feel could be used for 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 short fiction, short horror fiction online. Like case in point, 411. Like I think the only one that I've ever really been able to find that's solid is the Search and Rescue Woods Reddit No Sleep stories.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and if you have any suggestions for them, or if you like our format of this kind of format and you would like to see a little bit more of it, send us comments, send us messages on in the comments section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr,
Patreon,
and on Patreon, yeah, of course, yeah. And we, I'm at Review Cultist on Twitter, so if you'd like to talk to me, I'm I'm the face of the podcast. Which is funny because my persona is a shadowed cloaked figure. And if you'd like to email us with anything, any of your comments or suggestions or concerns, you can do that at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Send us your creepy stories, your creepypastas, your strange like Bigfoot sighting accounts or spooky woodland accounts to that email. You creep it, we'll peep it. That's our logo now. And if you'd like to help support us financially, you can go to Patreon, look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. Yes, Brownie, we're eventually going to get to that Twilight episode on the Patreon. It will happen eventually.
2022, it will happen.
Yeah. You can support us there. And to our patrons, such as Brownie, thank you immensely because you're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. You're helping keep the lights on, and we very much appreciate that. And to the listeners, thank you immensely because without your listenership, it would feel like screaming into the void. It would feel isolating, like we're stuck in the woods, and no one wants that.
Indeed.
And yeah, it's sort of hard. I don't want to say to the authors of these accounts because like these are not accounts that we're talking about. These are strange missing people's, like unexplained missing people's events and stuff that are happening. But for the people that are advertising this or like posting them online and bringing them to light, thank you immensely because, well, first off, you're bringing it to light and like kind of helping it like not be forgotten, but also if you didn't, we wouldn't have much of a topic, and we wouldn't have much of have the awareness of it. And to that, I thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist,
And I'm Adam.
and this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.
See y'all later.
Just a quick aside. So my sister came home like about halfway through like the start of our recording. But like I didn't know if it was her or not. So I sent and my dogs like reacted and went upstairs so I closed my door and then I sent her a message. It's like, did you just come home? Just recording right now. And she's like, no, I'm snowshoeing still. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I'll be back in an hour. Why? Want me to pick something up for dinner? It's like, no, I think mom just came home, and like, because I didn't go and check, like I was listening to you, so I just like, I'm just gonna let Adam go and maybe if like there's a pause, I'll see what's going on upstairs and stuff. And then I got this message. I'm totes kidding. That's me. Like as if you didn't go and check.
She's fucking with you, man. That's bad.
It's like I could have been somebody could have just walked into our house and like let my dogs out the back and then like start stealing things and like just here recording this.
Fuck it.
God.